Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Thorgal Beyond the Shadows by Gregor Rosinski and Jean Van Hamme. This is, again, a Cinebook production, but in this video I'm only going to go over Beyond the Shadows. I realize that this printing actually also includes the fall of Breck Zareth, or what is it? Is it Breck Zareth? Yeah, Zareth. Yeah, Breck Zareth. It's kind of like a two-in-one combo is what Cinebook is doing here, rather than just print one book as its own. Or I believe in France, Belgium, Europe, this is actually printed as just this story on its own, which is about 45 pages. So anyway, let's jump into this. Again, I've said it a bunch of times. I love Thorgal. This has absolutely been one of the best discoveries I've found getting into European comics, bande dessinée, etc. This one is a pure joy to go through. So you get this beautiful illustrative opening right here. You got a very damp and dark medieval town. And here's this character walking across here as he's finding this town to be very rough for the old man here. So he goes in this bar and he's asking, this tavern right here, and he's asking this guy, hey, have you ever heard of a man named Thorgal? He's a great warrior. And the bartender just laughs his ass off and points to our hero here, Thorgal, who is a mess. So just to kind of catch you up on what's been going on here, Thorgal believes that his wife, his pregnant wife, Aracia, died in the previous volume, mainly due to this freaking little brat here named Shania, who fell in love with Thorgal and wanted him for herself right here. So she kind of sold him out, and he ended up having to go through another adventure where he had to escape from a boat and a whole bunch of other crazy shit. But anyhow, this old man finds him in the bar and tells him, hey, I need you for a quest right here. And then he, reveals the key to the second world, which, for those of you who remember the tale previous to that, which was where he ran into the lady, the key keeping lady, who gave him this kind of rod of lead right here. And he discovers, you get a sort of reminder that this is a magical item here, as this guy basically turns into Technicolor here and basically disappears into another dimension. And this causes a ruckus, and he ends up chasing Thorgal out of the tavern and away to where they're hiding over here on these ruins right here, which kind of look like Stonehenge. Anyhow, so Shania takes the time here to kind of explain the situation for the reader, so to remind you what's been going on in the previous issue and the situation right here. She's very much an untrustworthy character here, as it's obvious as they go through and they're kind of interrogating her as far as what's going wrong with Thorgal, and she kind of puts herself in a light right here and is very dismissive of any of these old men's attempts to save Thorgal. So through the use of some magic, he's able to reveal to Thorgal that Aracia is actually still alive, but she's kind of on the edge of death, and he's going to need to go on a quest into the land of the death, basically the God's land, using the key that was shown in the previous panels to rescue Aracia. So that he walks over into this swamp. This is very, very. I wonder if the never-ending story ripped from some of the French comic books, or if it was its own thing. Because this reminds me so much of the swamp in the first never-ending story issue. But this was done. I think, when was the original publishing date of this? I'm going to check it out right now. This was originally published 1983. So yeah, I think this predates Neverending Story. So though it wouldn't be the first time that either an American Western or British or Japanese piece of media has ripped from the French. Yeah, kind of dirty little secret. The French get ripped a lot. Not on everything, but they do get ripped off a lot. Yeah, man. So what follows is basically a amazing, classic fantasy adventure as he goes through the land of the dead and through the land of time. You get great, yeah, you imagine oh, it's a fantasy, so let's have dinosaurs. This is so freaking great. Jean Van Hamme is just a great plotter and writer, man. He kind of knows it. And then Gregor Rosinski, I mean, there's not much you can say bad about the art right here. It's just, typical gorgeous, European art. I also really love, I'm not sure if Gregor Rosinski actually colored this or if he had a separate colorist. I know in certain books there's a separate colorist, and then in other books, Rosinski, I think, does color his own stuff. But I cannot, love the colors more in this book. They're just so, what I love about them is it's not a lot of like crazy rendering. You can tell this was, or at least highly likely this was done, well, actually it definitely was done analog because this was done in the 80s, but like you notice how it's just strong uses of primary and more basic shading techniques and basic blending techniques. There's not a lot of like crazy high rendering, airbrushing, none of that modern shit that you see in like American comics all the time. And that's something that I think a lot of digital colorists don't understand. They're going so crazy on the high glare, gloss, special effects, just photoshopping the living shit out of things that you kind of miss the power that, just strong primaries can have on a story. So they end up reuniting with the Keykeeper lady and going through a bunch of different challenges and events. They eventually screw up, and they ended up falling into essentially the realm of death right here. I love this had to be, he had to have painted it black and then went over this with like a ruler with white ink. Because goddamn, this is so cool looking. Look at like the spin and the webs here. It's like, oh man, this is like really cool looking. So the death ends up giving him a choice, like, hey, in order for me to give you back Arcia, who's about to die, I need a life in exchange. And Thorgal initially is going to shoot an arrow to take a life in exchange, but he ends up finding that he can't do it. He can't take an innocent life because all of these strands essentially represent a life in the real world, and breaking them kills a life. And he ends up, and this kind of shows who Thorgal is. He's not a bad guy. He's truly a good person. He can't end an innocent life just to save his dying wife and child. He's not going to do that. So lucky for him, there is an awful character that is willing to do that. So Shania ends up taking the bow and arrow, shooting it, and taking a life to save Arcia. And they don't know who the life is, so Death then casts them into a cave and says, you have to hurry to save your life. So this is really cool. So this is all rendered black and white, and then there's just one color spot right here. I really like this. This is like a really interesting effect. And I know for some people this would be like, oh, it's just lazy. He just only colored one spot. But the contrast is what really makes it work. And I think especially for fantasy, where anything can kind of go right here, it's very believable and beautiful. Like, god damn. Anyway, I'm not gonna spoil the ending here, mainly because it is something that is really, again, I cannot tell you enough. Like, you really are missing out if you've never read any of these French comics, especially Thorgal. And the ending here is really a great twist, and it's something about Thorgal really reminds me of the Grimm's fairy tales or Aesop's fables. There's always a very dark twist and a lesson at the end that often not is like it's the kind of stories that I think American writers would not really want to do or would feel just too dark. Even Japanese writers would feel is too dark. And I think the European writers, they have a skill of, and I should say the mainland European writers, because I think, no offense to the British writers, but I think the French, Belgium, European, like the continental writers are very different than the British writers. And they handle dark subjects and dark themes very differently than the British writers. And one thing I like about Thorgal is, even though it's very dark, it's not really nihilistic. There's a lesson behind the darkness, behind the gratuitousness or gratuity, I should say, of these stories, and it's what makes these very enjoyable. And you can really, these are books that you can put on your bookshelf and just continue reading years after years after years. You can just forget the story, pick it up, reread it, and re-enjoy it again and again and again. And I can't say that the same for a lot of some of the more darker stories out there. And again, I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg for French comic books, by the way. There's so many of them. And I really don't have time to go over all of them, so I have to kind of pick and choose my battles. I think the next, or I should say, BD, bande dessinée that I'm going to go over is one that a lot of people have been asking me to do, which is called Storm. And I'll definitely be looking that one up and trying to find if I can see an English translation. Either that, or I'm going to have to learn how to read French, or maybe Italian or Spanish. I love how there's these books from the Franco-Belgian market. They'll translate them into Spanish and Italian in a heartbeat, but holy shit, is it hard to find an English translation. I wonder if the French do that on purpose just to mess with the Brits. But anyhow, yeah, this story right here, and here's the Fall of Brexareth. This story here was fantastic, and another great epic in the story of Thorgal. If you can pick this up either from Cinebook or off eBay or Amazon, definitely recommend it. Again, the binding on these Cinebooks are very questionable, as I've shown you in Lucky Luke and Yokozuna. They're not necessarily the greatest print quality out there, but for those of you who can't read French or Spanish or Italian, they're probably going to be the best you're going to get for English speakers out there. At least you get two books in one, or two stories in one book, so still a pretty good deal there. And I think, what is the retail on this, guys? So, so US $19.95 though. I think I got this less than $20. Pretty certain I got this for like $17, which to me, for the two stories that are in here, is well worth it. I think this is like 80 or 100 pages, so it's 80 and 100 pages French, Belgium. Comic book too, so each page has a shitload of story in it. So very, very nice. So no art for this story, just wanted to go over this particular book and bring some awareness to these French, Belgium, European comics that are out there. Anyhow, that's the video, guys. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Thorgal Beyond the Shadows, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.